I'm back again, your host, with a new guest, Sonia. Hi, Sonia. How are you doing?
I'm good, Anurag. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. That too on a Thursday morning, sitting out of a hotel in Philadelphia. Not bad. So, quick introduction, right? I know that I talk lot about introduction. So yeah, you can do your own. I know, but give me a chance to introduce you, perhaps. So Sonia leads the marketing charter of a community bank called Webster 5, right? And it's been some time. We connected, we shared notes, we did chat. I felt amazing about what she's doing at Webster 5 in the initial chat itself, and I thought of inviting her to my podcast because she resonates very well to the principles because of which we are doing this podcast, right? So firstly, again, thanks a lot. I'll do a quick introduction again, a broader one, right? So what does Sonia do right now, right? She's a marketing leader, right, with an extensive experience across technology and specifically focused towards financial services, right? Her experience spans across, multiple marketing functions, starting with branding to integrated communication to operations, digital research, CX, right? Across, I would say, three different specific markets: investment banking, credit unions, and community banks. So, Sonia has seen, I would say, the entire spectrum of ecosystem from consumer lending to investment banking, that to credit unions and community banks. So, that's a very niche experience that she has, right? Uh, at Webster 5, she leads everything marketing and advertising, right? When she's not working, definitely, she's a very busy person to get hold of to get a 45 minutes now. Now I understand. But when she's free, she's passionate about a couple of things, right? One, she serves on the board of a organization called New England Financial Marketing Association. That's called NEFMA. It's very well known. Uh, and she also is a volunteer facilitator and a mentor, right, for the United Way of Central Massachusetts Women's Initiative Dollar Scholar Program, right? So she's very passionate about that too. I'll take a pause, Sonia. I don't know if I did, a good job, bad job, horrible job in introducing you. You can maybe opine on that, but thanks again for coming to the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anurag. No, I think you covered my career and summarized it really well. So I started my career in technology. Um, Always been in marketing, but started in technology industry, and then later made a move to financial services. And like you said, I've worked in diverse environments. I've worked in global companies, to mid-sized to smaller entities. So definitely a gamut of experience. I really found my home in community banking and credit unions because I think um, it's heartfelt. The community engagement that's really at the center of everything that they do. So I think I'm here to stay.
Absolutely, I think that's what even I resonate, right? Working for Fortune hundreds for like years. So after that, when I got introduced into community banking ecosystem, community banks and credit unions, I felt very positive, and I would say very connected to what we do over here.
Yeah.
It's purpose driven. Obviously, it's a business that we are running, but at the end of the day, it's purpose driven. We genuinely care for our customers and members, right? So definitely, absolutely. So uh, I know. I mean, you have a lot to talk about, right? I mean, you did a lot. So what has been your journey so far, Sonia? I mean, so far.
Like I said, I've been in marketing a long time. I've seen the evolution of it, from very traditional focused to now really hyper focused on digital and social. So I've really seen the evolution of that. But I think I've really grown up in the marketing operations space, where I've been responsible for providing what I like to call the operational air cover, really to enable marketing in developing engaging programs, in process optimization, digital execution of campaigns and programs, and then at the end of that implementation and execution, measurement, and some amount of risk mitigation with compliance and governance, which is such an essential piece of financial services marketing. And I know you mentioned challenges in this type of a role, where you're almost a bridge between people and systems and technology and processes. Um, it brings a unique set of problems and issues. And
Yep.
really, I think technical expertise works only to a certain extent. But when you combine it with trust building and patience and understanding and empathy, that's when there is an impact. It's I've never been afraid to roll up my sleeves and just plunge right into the challenges. So be it design, be it analytics, be it communication, events, website, you name it, right? And so I think that's really been the way to overcome all of the challenges that I've faced along the way.
Got it. I understand. Absolutely. So this is very close to even what I did, right? I mean, I started my career in analytics. Then, I mean, I started my career with Accenture. So then I moved on to the agency business of Accenture, Accenture Interactive, now Accenture Song. Then moved to EXL, now helping the agency business of EXL grow, right? Essentially. So this is very closely related to what I even do, helping financial services ecosystem you grow using hyper personalized way. I think what you talked about. One part is being creative, qual and quant, right? Qual is good, but quant is very important. The operations aspect of it might be not that glamorous, but it is so important. Attribution, matchback. Without that, you cannot get ROIs. I mean, a few days back, I was looking at or reading an article from Financial Brand that was suggesting that it's very difficult to have a new CMO position created in a financial services organization right now, because people want to justify about the ROI. But if CMOs, not only CMOs, if people like us focus on measuring what we are doing, we have success matrix at the end of every campaign, at the end of every strategy, I think every dollar spent is well spent, right? Because without a marketing machinery, you'll never be able to grow, you'll never be able to establish a brand, you'll never be able to even retain customers. That's like the front door for any organization. So yeah, that's a very critical role, Sonia, that you are in, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And marketing, I know, has been treated as an expense for such a long time.
yep.
Um, I joined Webster 5. It's been a little over 2 years now, and what I've really attempted to do is bring marketing from that periphery of the circle to right to the center, to make it the core of everything we do. So it's not
Exactly.
treated as that expense stepchild, and we can actually show results in terms of ROI, matchbacks, measuring impact in the marketplace, and actually attach figures and numbers to it. And I think that makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
And with digital focus, I wouldn't say it's easy to do, but it's
Still
easier,
easier. Much
than
easier.
maybe having a traditional way of marketing. So I think we are getting there gradually and slowly.
And I think, going forward, we'll be able to even more sharpen our pencils, because with all digital, attribution is easier. Let's face it that way. Matchback
Right.
is much easier, right? So definitely, that's a way forward. Cool. Lot of geeky marketing stuff, right? Now let's talk about. Both of us geek out when we talk about marketing. Both of us are passionate about that. Uh, let's talk about your a few challenges, right? Obviously, leading the marketing charter for a community bank uh, with a fast track career, right? Firstly, I'm proud of what you're doing, Sonia, out there. And this has obviously it has not been a bed of roses, right? There were challenges across your career, move from technology to I believe in martech, then to marketing. So it's a very different journey that you've seen. So, what are the different challenges that you've faced across in your career, and specifically, for my women viewers, right, who aspire to become Sonia one day, to become a CMO of a community bank at a relatively younger age, right? So, what are your challenges faced, and what are your advices that you have for aspiring women leaders?
I love how you said relatively younger. um, I, I'll tell you something. As I feel talent and diligence and hard work, it's kind of gender agnostic.
Yep.
If you believe in learning and adaptability and flexibility, I don't think there's any stopping you. Um, but I don't consider myself in any kind of a position to advise and consult. But what I will say, what I have learned is always being open to new challenges and opportunities is great. And like I just said, let learning and adaptability really play vital roles in your career trajectory. So when I started my career in marketing, I think social was just about taking off. And today, social marketing is almost a marketing function of its own. In that multi-channel setup and integrated communications, social plays a significant role. We
Absolutely.
can talk about the pros and cons and the societal effects and all of that, which is a separate conversation of its own. But really, that evolution I've seen. So always taking a challenge and turning it into an opportunity, I think, is one of the main things I've learned. The other thing is mentorship. I think mentorship is big. Always find a mentor, and it doesn't always have to be in the current workplace. There are numerous organizations. I don't
Yep.
like the word networking because it's very transactional. I
Yes.
like to talk more in terms of relationship building. All of my past organizations that I've worked with, I have great relationships with my supervisors, managers, co-workers, and I always go back to them if there is an issue, if there is a discussion, if there's a challenge that comes up. So I think building that sort of a camaraderie with other women and men, it helps a lot. So taking advantage of, for example, there's Chief out there for women.
I know.
There is LinkedIn. I mean, there's numerous associations. So always take advantage of those, I think. And just always continue to be excited by what lies ahead, both in known areas and newer avenues. Because the
Yep.
newer place is what helps you get out of your comfort zone and learn and adapt and move forward. So I'm very positive in that sense. Get your hands dirty, get right into, take a plunge and do things that are new and uncomfortable. And that's the only way to grow, I feel.
Absolutely.
I and
That's
One
very
thing I
important.
will say is don't let these parameters of women and don't let those define you. I think just having an open mind and trying to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve, and keep moving forward.
Exactly. It's like not breaking barriers, but yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
being flexible, being agile. It doesn't really matter, at least in today's world, whether you're women or a men. Things are almost same. I mean, that's a debate I have, right? I mean, my mother always becomes upset that why don't I wish her on a Women's Day? I was like, why is there even a day? I mean, there's nothing to celebrate specifically on a Women's Day, right? I mean, women should be celebrated every single day, like a man. So
Yeah,
so that's
and
it.
don't get me wrong. I think there's still some level of systemic change that needs to happen, for women to
Absolutely,
be able to grow,
absolutely.
for us to see more women in the C-suite and at the executive level. But all that happens in parallel, I think. As
Yes,
individuals, as women who aspire to get there, I think we still need to focus on the skill set, on the mindset, and developing those.
absolutely. I think that's very well taken, Sonia. Right. Now, since you have had a such successful career in marketing, I mean, this entices me to ask a few questions, deep, trying to deep dive onto it, right? So, would you want to talk about a few successful initiatives, uh, or maybe projects, engagements that you're actually proud of across your career that you want to share with uh, my audience?
Yeah, I mean, there have been a few things that I've been able to accomplish. I'd say digital transformation has been big. So I was able to gather some experience while I was working with this global investment bank. It's called Brown Brothers Harriman. I was part of the digital marketing team there. And there was an initiative that happened which ultimately fell through and did not go all the way. But there was an acquisition by State Street of BBH's certain function that needed to happen. And I was a part of that migration team. So really, I think that the learning that happened there was immense. And then when I came to Webster 5, I was really able to implement a lot of that. So the digital transformation, and when I say digital first, there is a certain level of support that's being provided by the higher, by the executive level, who really want to move away from that traditional sort of marketing that has
Yes.
always been done.
Yes.
So making use of data analytics, really creating dashboarding tools, suites of dashboards so that we can actually start to measure and track and monitor all of the ROI, all of the spend that we are doing. Taking the brand from being known as a 150-year-old bank and moving it forward by bringing that digital focus into play. So the presence and visibility has to make that jump and make that leap into being present on social marketing, revamping the website, and everything that goes with that. So it's not just the aesthetics of the
A
website.
lot of work.
It's what are we measuring on the website. It's how we are planning, organizing it. It really is the mainstay of a company because, we talk so much about trying to get the younger generation to bank with us.
Yep.
Where are they finding you? They're finding you on all of these different digital and social channels. So unless you're visible there, you will not connect with them. And that's a very important lesson to learn. So I think that digital transformation has really been a big, I don't want to call it a feather in my cap, but something that I've been proud of, to be able to make that change and bring, the team along with me to really believe in that. I think that's big. So just establishing that discipline, I guess, would be a big one.
And I think, you're passionate enough to do it, right? That's the reason you were successful in doing it and you still want to do it going forward. So that's something which is very important, right? So a quick, again, a follow-up question. Since you've spent a lot of time across community banks, community financial institutions, right? Which are focused mainly on, CRE to CNI to commercial, mainly commercial lending, to a part of having focus on consumer, right? So hence community banks and credit unions are two different ecosystems altogether. Both of them exist because of different reasons, right? That is the first basic thing we need to know, right? So what I have a basic question I keep on hearing from a lot of consultants to bankers. Ask me one question, right? Looking at the current CRE market right now, right? Definitely post COVID, the vacancy rates for commercial real estate have shot up, and I personally think if you ask me that, those spaces must be leveraged for housing societies or housing purposes, at least, so that there's some cash flow that's coming in, right? But definitely that's the best case scenario that we should do, but that's definitely not happening at a lot of times, right? I hate to ask you this question, but still I'll ask you, right? Do you think the CRE is a bubble that might burst, or it's still a precursor that we're just contemplating about?
No, that's an interesting, and I guess it's something you can't really escape, right? Being in a community banking space, especially a bank that focuses on businesses and commercial lending and deposits. No, I think that's a really great question. And to address it, I think it's important to just sort of talk a little bit about COVID and, what's happened in the marketplace. So there definitely was a deposit growth experienced during COVID. And I'm talking about retail deposits. But then, inflationary pressures came in. And then the Fed raised the Fed's fund rate. I think between 22 and 23 was 11 times, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 11 times.
So that rate cycle obviously resulted in deposit rates surging. Now, what that did, and in beginning of 2023, there was a huge amount of cash that exited the banking system. It moved into U.S. Treasuries and institutional money marketing accounts, and so there was a lot of pay up to retain and acquire deposits. Second half of 23 saw some of that outflow subside, but I think it's still a challenge as we are in 2024 now, to recover some of those deposits that left the system. With commercial, I'd say, the growth will be 5% or less this year. And that may be a short-term view, but then again, elevated interest rates, they've cooled the commercial real estate market, especially the office space, as you just
Yes.
mentioned. The industrial space also, which was really a hot sector for community banks, for smaller community, medium to small community banks, that has appeared to be overbuilt. Now, multifamily housing continues to see development. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And there will be a need for bank lending there.
Yeah.
But overall, I think commercial and industrial sector will probably see slow growth, as many businesses, they've had hiring challenges. There's been growth capabilities limitations. The Fed is anticipating a soft landing this year, but I think several businesses have elected to delay or reduce projects. So a lot of our
Yeah.
commercial real estate lending has really slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't still call it a bubble, Anurag, but I think, there is definitely concern for that economic slowdown to impact it during 2024.
Right. I mean, it was not maybe appropriate on my part to even ask a question about if CRE is a bubble or not, but definitely this is a concern that all of us have, and we need to be very sure. But because, I mean, again, to dwell on your point, right? I mean, the rates are not going down any quick, right? You're expecting.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Fed has its own reason for it, right? Because of rising inflation. I think by this, at least, inflation has been controlled a lot, right? But yeah, so this is not easy. But yeah, I mean, I would want to have a close look at what is happening across CRE and talking to bankers like you. Now, a different track, right? Since you came from technology, I mean, your experience at MathWorks, right? All of us know what MathWorks does. It's you're one of the very few CMOs, Sonia, that I'm talking, who has a technology background per se and who's come from a product setting, right, from MathWorks. You understand how a product is built and translating the product knowledge to how a marketing function runs. That really helps, right? So you are obviously savvy with data, right, because you come from a tech background. So for a typical community bank, how I look at a community bank is, I would say, three different pillars where data should be used in a community bank. Definitely for customer acquisition, second for retention, and third is hyper personalization, right? Because for all three, let me just pull up one point and then maybe you can add on to it. When my question would be for acquisition, right? Today, if you're competing against the giants of the world, right, specifically towards consumer banking, I mean, it's a statistics that I take everywhere. I mean, it takes 3 minutes to open an account in China, right? So what should a community bank do, or what are your 2 cents on using data and analytics for customer acquisition to compete against the fintechs and the neobanks of the world?
I mean, it's inevitable, right? That's the only way now. And I think in our conversation today, it's evident that data and data analytics, it's important. Data-driven decision making is important. All of our insights need to be based on really robust data that we can collect from customers and from prospects. And again, I think I keep coming back to this fact about trying to acquire and retain younger audiences.
Yeah.
ultimately, we have to recognize the role of marketing ROI and the KPI methodology and the data analytics really influencing nature um, in terms of retention and growth of customers. We have recently started onboarding of a new CRM tool. We also went through a core conversion late last year. All of these are steps in that direction of making really insightful decisions, which are not just based out of thin air. We are
Yeah.
trying to really get that data in, um, and that's how we want to engage with clients. So all of the creative, all of the idea generation has to be based on that research and hardcore research and data, um,
Mm-hmm.
clean data, data that's
Clean.
gone through a hygiene process,
Yes,
correct?
that's the most important
Um,
thing.
so I think the first step, of course, is that moving towards technology sophistication, getting the right tools in, upskilling the employees to make sure they're able to actually take advantage and benefits from those tools and platforms. And I think we're right in the middle of it. So the future is bright. It's just about taking one step in front of the other and in the right direction.
Absolutely, that's. I mean, it covers a lot of perspectives. Now moving to the next pillar of retention, right? So again, our number, right? Essentially, cost to acquire a new customer is 8x than retaining a customer. It's not easy to acquire a new customer, right? So how do you think again data will help or should help a community bank like yours retain its existing member or customer base?
I think it's recognizing where the customer is in their financial journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that, again, comes with data, right? If it's a first time home buyer, how do we reach out to them? There is a
Yep.
certain level of education and financial literacy that comes into play.
Yes.
And again, we have tools for those. We are trying to build up expertise and thought leadership in those areas. Actually, we have a lot of thought leadership in those areas. It's just about communicating externally to the right set of customers. How do you
Yep.
recognize that right set of customers? How does that identification take place? It's through data. Um,
Absolutely.
Once they've bought, their first home, what's the next step? Do we then try to directly sell them refinance? No. You have to find the right product and the right service that
Exactly.
aligns, with where they are in their journey. And that's really the
Mhm.
trick. It's not, there's no secret sauce. It's just getting to the customer at the right time with the right product and service. And
Exactly.
that's only enabled by the right data.
That's typical hyper personalization, right? So it's not only just using data to find. I mean, I call them as triggers, right? So find triggers
Yeah.
of understanding what a consumer needs right now. But yeah, I mean having that relevant product palette to go and offer that product or services to a customer. I mean, I was just talking to one of my very close friends, Brian Claggett, yesterday. We were just driving around Virginia. So we were just talking about one specific, I would say, instance that he went onto a stage and asked everyone that, how does banking look like to you? Right? So everyone was like, I mean, his question was, do you think banking is a chore right now? For all of you guys, they were like, I mean, and in audience of all bankers, people were like, yeah, I think it is. So the response is, let's do something to change it for a consumer, right? So what do we make it to make it more personalized, more, I would say, relevant for consumers? So I think for that, data is much needed for hyper personalization, correct product palette. So yeah, I think whatever you're doing at Webster 5, you're exactly in the right direction of what at least consumers would want going forward. And again, very specific example that I take almost every time, that uh, what will a community bank do, to have a consumer like me who's a cross between a millennial and a Gen Z? I call myself a Zennial, because what we look at is, I would say, a chime-like experience followed by, if not huge, but yeah, I mean, some level of personalization, right? I mean, it shouldn't be the case that I come and tell you, Sonia, that I would need this product, right? You should have basic understanding about my profile, my needs, my customer, the journey where I am right now. What I am expecting is to give me a Spotify like recommendation, because I'm used to it. If Spotify can give me a recommendation of what my playlist would look like, I would definitely want my financial institution to tell me, how would I go and park my money? How do I go and reinvest and invest my money in a better way? I think that's another focus
Yeah.
which community financial institutions should have, going forward. Cool.
No, I
This is
agree with that. And I think we are so cause driven, this age group. We are so purpose driven. We are so cause driven. So, um, apps like Spiral, they help a lot.
yeah.
We are all asked to invest or round up our savings and our
I know.
spending. But if we
Yep.
can channel that towards a certain cause that this generation is empathetic about, I think that's an excellent way to reach them. So there's definitely these snippets available. I think we just have to connect them and really make a nice story um, to be able to make that connection with the right audience.
Absolutely. And I think I'm at least personally very confident about where we are going. I mean, things are changing, right? Community banks are reinventing, renovating themselves towards a more sustainable and better future. I know we are almost on the top of the hour. I'll ask you one quick question before we wrap up, Sonia. Where do you think is the banking industry, moving ahead in rest of 2024 or next year? Where do you think is the banking industry moving, and specifically for community banks? I mean, how well poised the community banks are right now.
I think in the short term, if you talk about just 2024, it's expense control. That's huge this year, right? We've talked about inflation, we've talked about the rate environment and the rate climate. The residential market still really behind. CRE, it's a concern going forward. Deposit growth has been a challenge after last year. So I think expense control probably in the short term, and those trying to address those declining margins with fees going away, with all of the new government regulations coming in.
Yeah.
In the longer run, I think the continued increase in the digital first approach. So
Yes.
continued investment in technology, and that sort of technological sophistication is important. In the community banking world and the ecosystem, I think going forward, there's also going to be a big focus on mergers and acquisitions, because we all have these
Yes.
synergies that can come together and be more impactful in terms of all of our community engagement that we do, and also on the bottom line and the revenue generation. So I see a lot of consolidation happening
Cons-
going forward.
that's another chat. I mean, Sonia, if we talk, I think half an hour is not enough. I mean, I actually misjudged that we'll be able to wrap this up in half an hour, but I think this is much broader discussion to have. It was a very interesting, fulfilling chat for me. I mean, I'm a marketer by heart, right? Did marketing consulting for years. So yeah, I mean, a marketer talking to another marketer, that way in financial services. So it was such a fulfilling discussion. Thanks a lot, Sonia, for your time today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Anurag. Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.